Hello there, folks, and welcome to Existential Sunday. If you are watching this via the replay and we've not met, my name is Corey. And I am a husband, a father, a host of a podcast for which this live is an extension of. I'm also a writer and a speaker. Welcome to all of you. This is your first time. This space is curated for people who are going through some sort of deconstruction of either their faith or their ideas of society or themselves, or some sort of decolonization of their faith or their views of society. Everyone's welcome here. You're welcome to comment. You are welcome to share. In fact, if you're coming in live to either Facebook or YouTube, feel free to hit the share button right now, especially if you're a person who's been around for a while and you've watched a couple of these and you trust that what we're about to talk about is something that you want your friends to see. Feel free to share it right now, or you can tag people in the comments below on Facebook. I'm not sure if you can do the same on YouTube, but certainly on Facebook. And if you're watching this later via replay, you can watch to the end, especially if you don't know me and you're like, I'm not going to share something. I don't know who you are. You can wait to the end and decide if you want to share what I'm saying or not. But thank you all for being here. Thank you for being a part of this Existential Sunday. Welcome to all of you. Now, today, I want to talk about something I've been wrestling with all week. There will likely, just so you know, be no mention of entanglements today. All right. I know that's all the rage right now, but it's not something I'll be talking about today. But I do want to talk about relationships. I do want to talk about friendships in particular. And I think there's probably a lot of information out there about how you yourself can be a person who is attractive to more friends, how you can gain more friends, how you can be friendly enough to have more friends. But this particular talk that I'm doing today is actually a talk about how you can have less friends. Because I think happiness is found with less friends than more. And I'll explain what I mean in a moment. But first, let me tell you a little bit about what happened to me this week. Earlier this week, I couldn't sleep. I don't know why. Woke up at like 3:30 in the morning and I couldn't go back to sleep. You know, sometimes like you'll just wake up and you're still a little sleepy and you can fall back asleep, but sometimes you wake up and you're up. Well, that was me earlier this week. And I did what most people do when they're up and can't sleep. I started reading Aristotle's rhetoric, because I'm sure that's what everybody does when they can't fall back asleep. And I found a lot of interesting ideas in that. And I like reading like super old stuff like that, including the Bible, because if I can read it through somewhat of an existential lens, a human lens, beginning with us as human beings, and I can sort of see how human beings in the ancient past thought about certain things that I'm thinking about now, I find myself like really riveted by the wisdom, right? And so Aristotle was talking, he makes this statement that everyone does or doesn't do, and I'm terribly paraphrasing this, does or doesn't do things based on their own happiness. In other words, everything that we do or don't do is about being happy. And he begins to define happiness by a couple of things that I actually totally disagree with now. Physical stature was one of those, owning property and the security of that property, and having a lot of friends, which I thought was interesting. I thought all of the definition of happiness was interesting, but the friendship one I thought was particularly interesting. And even more interesting to me is the way that he defines friends. So here's what Aristotle says about friends. Aristotle says, we define friend as one who will always try for your sake to do what he takes to be good for you. We define friend as one who will always try for your sake to do what he takes to be good for you. My experience, and certainly I want to make sure I'm also being clear that I'm talking about this in the context of social media as well. We're in a social media age where what we label the people who we're connected to, we label them as friends. We have friends on Facebook, we have friends on Instagram, we have, followers on Twitter or whatever, but we consider those interactions to be somewhat friends. So, yeah, I'm friends with so-and-so on such and such. And so in this era of friendship, I think we need definitions like this. Like we need to understand what we mean when we say friend. When I say this person is my friend, what am I actually saying? And I think a lot of us actually use the term friend relatively loosely, especially given the fact that here, one more time, let me show you this ancient idea of friendship. That we define friend as one who will always try for your sake to do what he takes to be good for you. And I guess I would say at this point, I know that there have been people who called me friend, who considered me to be their friend, I would have considered them to be my friend, who that was not true of. They were not people who were necessarily looking out for my good. So I want to give you my own list of things that I think, as I've been thinking about all week and processing this, when I'm thinking about friendship and what it means to be friends. I want to give you a list of things for you to weed out your friends. And this also has, for those of you that come from the Christian tradition like I do, this also has some biblical backing as well. I found this week this really interesting sentence in the Bible that I had never paid attention to in this regard before. And it's in Judges. I want to say, I don't know where it is in Judges, but it's the story of Gideon, right? And God's talking to Gideon about the band of people he has with him to go do the thing that Gideon's going to do. Gideon's about to go to war with some people. And God is like, as he's going on in his journey to do this war, God keeps telling him that he has too many people. In fact, when Gideon gets down to, I want to say some really small amount of people, I'm sorry, guys, I don't have the exact number, but this is the sentence that God says: there are still too many people. And I think this is true of a lot of us when it comes to our mindset and how we think about who are our friends, who are the people that I would use that term for, right? That I would say, this person is my friend. And for some of you, I'm going to say to you today that there are still too many people who you call a friend. And God, in the story of Gideon, takes Gideon to this, he's at this creek or body of water, and he uses this sort of model or this sort of test to see who is it that can go forward with Gideon. And I think today I want to give you some ways to gauge who is it that can go forward with you. Now, I'm not advocating that you make a bunch of phone calls or unfollow a bunch of people on Facebook, unless you're finding that people on Facebook, as I have found, there are some people on Facebook who I've unfriended and blocked because I found connection to them to be harmful to me as a Black person, as a person who is a Black father, a Black husband, and a Black son. I have found some people's posts on Facebook to be harmful, so I am no longer friends with those people. But I'm not advocating that that you again make all these phone calls and tell people we're not friends anymore. But I am giving you the opportunity right now to do some internal gauging of, are the people connected to me supposed to be? Are the people connected to me able to go with me on the journey that I'm going on right now? And certainly I'll pause for a moment to talk specifically about the issue of racial justice. There are a lot of people who are adjacent to racial justice advocacy, a lot of people who are self-proclaimed allies, who, if we're being honest as Black folks, are not really our allies. They're not really people who are truly advocating for racial justice in the same way that we are advocating for racial justice. And some of what I'm about to go through shows you can see people who are truly about anti-racism and people who aren't. You can also gauge with this list that I'm about to give you. All right. So I'm going to start with the list now. The first thing on the list for me, when it comes to how do I gauge, is someone actually, to Aristotle's point that I do agree with, looking out for my good, right? Is it a person who makes it their business in terms of our relationship, a person who is an advocate of mine, who wants to see me get to where I'm going? The first thing friends do is friends listen. Friends listen. And I can tell you, my God, every time I try to do live, that's not a friend of mine. who rides by on the freaking motorcycle every freaking time I try to go live. But anyway, let me come back and focus. Listen, thank you. There's the point. Friends, listen. When I tell my story, friends, listen. Even if my story that I'm telling is a story that may feel personally painful to the person listening who is my friend, a friend still listens. If I need to bring a grievance to my friend and say, hey, we're friends, I'm sure you didn't mean anything by this thing that you said or did, but here's the effect that it had on me. A friend goes, let me hear what you're saying. Let me empathize with the words that you're saying. If there's a lack of clarity, if what you're saying is striking me in a way that I don't fully understand or comprehend, let me ask some questions to gain clarity. What a friend doesn't do is gaslight the thing that you're saying. And I have seen and had people who consider themselves to be my friends not ask me a single question about something that I said. I may make a statement about Black Lives Matter, or I may make a statement about my own experience as a Black person living in a anti-Black America, right? I may make even statements like that, even statements like saying America's anti-Black. I can tell my friends by the people who listen. And here's a myth that people try to like spread, right? This is a gaslighting tactic that people will use when they don't want to listen. They'll say, oh, you only want people who agree with you. Oh, I'm not welcome here because I'm not a yes person, or I don't agree with everything you have to say. I have never asked for total agreement. In fact, there are people who I'm very close to who I disagree with on many things, but we can still walk together because we listen to each other. And here's one of the ways I know I've listened, because if I can articulate back to you what your argument is, I have heard you. It doesn't mean I have to agree with it, but I do have to empathize with what you feel and where the thing is coming from that you have articulated or that you feel or that you're saying. And so many people who consider themselves friends, especially friends of Black and brown folks, don't listen very well. They hear you say something and they want to jump in and they want to correct you. They want to police your tone. They want to police your words. They want to police the way that you go about your business. And that is not a friend. That is not a person making space for your experience in your relationship. If there's not space for your experience in the relationship, I'll extend this a little bit for those of you, because I've been lately for those that are part of our Patreon community. We had a whole conversation earlier this week about how you know you should leave your church or your faith community. If there is not space for you within your faith community, if there's not space for the way you think, if there's not space for the way you talk, if there's not space for your culture or your ethnicity, you shouldn't be there. And you shouldn't be in connection to anywhere where there's not space for you. Next thing about friendship. When you're thinking about who can go with me on this journey, I know this stick around thing can only happen once someone has been around long enough. So they've obviously been on your journey for a little while. And so many of us, this is how journeys work for all of us, really, not just many of us, all of us. The way journeys work is this way. A journey is not that we have arrived. You're still moving forward. You're still going on. There's still things happening. And so once you have established that, okay, I've got friends who listen, or maybe you don't have friends who listen, and those folks you need to probably distance yourself from. But as you look around and you're thinking about your journey, and you're thinking about where you're going next, who has been with you for a long time? And in order for a friend to stick around, you have likely gone through some turmoil. You have likely gone through a moment in your friendship where there was a rub. There was some triggering event. There was something that happened, something that was said, some violation. Because here's the deal, folks, we're all human beings, and no matter how good intentioned we are, every one of us will let a friend down. The test of friendship is not that you never let each other down. The test of friendship is once you have been let down, or once I have let you down, does our friendship have enough stuff to make it through that? Can we get on, God bless you, babe, God bless you. Can we get on the other side of whatever the thing was that caused offense or hurt? And if we can't, if we don't have enough stuff to get through hard times, then that may not be a friendship. So as you're thinking about, okay, who's going with me as I move forward? Some of you are learning and growing. And some of you, my white brothers and sisters, you are educating yourself in anti-racism, and you are learning, and you're becoming an anti-racist more and more by the day. And you're getting criticism from friends and family because of the stances that you've taken. And you are on this journey where you're moving forward. And as you're moving forward, you're now having to ask yourself, who can go with me? And in that, it doesn't necessarily mean that all of your friends right now are where you are, but you might look around and find some people who stuck with you through some hard times. And those people may be some folks that you can go to and have some dialogue with, who may not be all the way there with you now, but because they've been around, you've been through some wars together, those folks may be people who can go with you on a journey. And I say may, because they also may not be. Because we are in very interesting, polarizing times where there is, I believe, to be a right side of history. And it is a side of history that may not be very popular amongst people who want to uphold the status quo. But there are some people who I think have been with you in the long haul. Some people who've stuck around through hard times, who will stay by your side. Last thing, back to Aristotle's quote, that we define friend as one who will always try for your sake to do what they take to be good for you. Friends look out for you. Maybe that goes without saying. And maybe this is a very obvious one. Maybe this is a duh one. But as you think about the people in your life who are connected to you, who are adjacent to you, who call themselves your friends, or maybe you call them your friend, I need you to think about a time where they looked out for you. Or has it just been you looking out for them? But I need you to think through this, right? Those of you who are moving forward, right? You have something in you that you're doing, and you're compelled to move forward. You're deconstructing your faith. You're decolonizing your faith. You're deconstructing your ideas about our society, or you're decolonizing your ideas about our society, which is a journey and a process. I need you to think about the people around you, and who is it that looks out for you? If you create content, who shares your content? If you are a person, and that's me, I'm speaking to myself, and I'm thinking about, okay, who is it that, like, when I write something, shares it? I mean, because I can tell you for me, and this is Corey, you don't all have to be this way. I am a person who, if I'm your friend and I trust you, I don't have to share everything that my friends write or put out, but if I trust you and we're friends, and I can't tell you how many times I've shared an article of a friend of mine, or shared a video of a friend of mine, or friends of mine, and I didn't even read it. I didn't even watch it. But I call myself looking out for my friend, making sure that my friend's work is seen or heard. And I think it's important that when you, this is just me as a content creator, there's other ways of you out there who may not be creating content, other ways that your friends can be looking out for you. I think that's important. I'll tell you a quick story about me when I was probably, it was 5th or 6th grade. And we were doing like the president's physical fitness or whatever that is. I don't know if we even still do that, but that's what I was doing. And we used to run the mile all the time. And I remember this like red brick, like track that went around like a fountain or something at this small Christian school I went to in a town called Collinsville, Illinois, which is the most Mayberry town you'll ever see. And I'm one of the only Black kids at this school. And my best friend was this white kid named Ben Greer, actually. Maybe I shouldn't say his full name. Anyway, that was my best friend in school. And I'm running this mile, and I am out in front. I'm killing everybody, right? I'm out in front, and it's, not because I'm necessarily the fastest runner. Maybe I had more endurance. I don't know what it was, but I was well out in front. And for some reason, on the last turn of the last lap, I looked back and saw my best friend, Ben Greer, behind me. And I slowed down so that Ben could win. Now, guys, I wish I could tell you that, like, you know, this is one of the proudest moments of my life. But to be honest with you, this is one of the things that plagues me. I think I've talked about this in counseling before. I don't know why I slowed down so that Ben could win. It wouldn't have, I mean, it's not like it made me any more or less of a friend to Ben. But for whatever reason, my 8-year-old consciousness thought, Ben's my best friend. Let me slow down and let him win. I despise that effing red second place badge that I got. Ribbon. That's what it is. Ribbon. I despise it. To this day, in my mind, I can vividly see Ben with his blue ribbon, me with my red. Ben smiling. I don't even remember Ben saying thank you for it, right? Maybe that's what bothers me so, but I don't know. But I laid down something that I should have had so that someone else could have it. A part of me believes that I was codependent, but the principle for me still remains the same, that out of my friendship for Ben, I acted. And here's what I do believe is true in a statement that I'll make out of this story that I just told you, even though it still haunts me. I do believe this to be true. A true friend isn't trying to beat you. A true friend is trying to help you win. A true friend isn't trying to beat you. They're trying to help you win. I believe this with all of my heart. That we live in this sort of capitalist society, not sort of, a capitalist society where everything is about winning and losing, the strongest surviving, those who have and those who don't have, and those who don't have striving to be those who have. And in the midst of that striving, sometimes we compromise friendships or we use friends for personal gain. Or we find ourselves without the space to listen to a friend because we want to prove that we're right. I've had 2 different occasions where I posted something on social media and people who said they were my friends came in to argue with me about what I posted because they thought that in order to be my friend, they needed to disprove what I was saying. For them, that's friendship. And can I tell you, that is absolutely unequivocally no friend of mine. Please do not call yourself a friend of Corey's when you do not listen to me, when you don't stick around. So here's what I forgot to tell you guys about this part, sticking around. I've had people, I think I've mentioned this to you guys before. I sang at their wedding and my wife was in their wedding. I wrote an article on whiteness. They saw the title and said, that's enough, and decided they couldn't be friends with us anymore. I've had other friends who wanted to lob accusations at me, and because I didn't accept their accusations as valid and push back and said, no, actually, that's not what it is, decided they couldn't be my friend. So if you can't stick around once your friend starts on a journey that makes you slightly uncomfortable, again, before you've asked the questions, before you fully understood what's going on with your friend, I don't know that y'all were ever friends to begin with. So you can't call yourself a friend of Corey if you don't listen. If you can't stick around beyond something uncomfortable, especially if you're going to be my friend, because certainly I'm going to say some things that make you uncomfortable. Especially to my white brothers and sisters, there will be things that I say that make you uncomfortable. To my evangelical brothers and sisters, I will say some things that make you uncomfortable. Guess what? You all say things that make me uncomfortable. I have very good friends who say things that make me uncomfortable. And when they say the things that make me uncomfortable, I either discuss it with them to gain further understanding, or I choose to sit and wrestle with the thing long enough until I do become comfortable with it. But what I don't do is gaslight them or tell them how wrong they are for saying the thing that made me feel uncomfortable. Lastly, do not call yourself a friend of Corey's. I just think it's disingenuous and unfair if you don't look out for me. If you're not a person who is thinking about ways that you can help me win. Not if you're a person who's only thinking about ways you can beat me, prove me wrong, argue with me, like push your agenda with what I'm doing, then we're not friends then. And there's no reason for you to consider yourself my friend if that's the case. And if you've never advocated for my work, for me, for my thoughts, for any of that stuff, it's like, I mean, I don't know that we can really be friends then, right? I mean, we can call each other friends based on the fact that, again, I'll give you one last look at my late night reading, that Aristotle defines friendship as one who will always try for your sake to do what they take to be good for you. Last thing I'll say before I get out of here and let you go is this. When I think about what is good for you, it's not always that I'm saying nice things to you. It's not always that I am just nodding my head and agreeing and smiling and laughing with you. Sometimes what is good for you is for me to hold you accountable, for me to share words with you that you may not like. That's friendship. This is a part of the wisdom literature in the scriptures talks about the wounds of a friend being better than the kisses of an enemy or something like that. I totally botched to paraphrase it, but the wisdom literature has this ideology in it that there is something about friendship and friends holding each other accountable that's important for all of us to understand. When I talk about what is good for you as a friend, it's not just that I'm always like, yeah, you're right. Sometimes I do need to say, no, you're wrong. I think the way you said that was insensitive. I think the way you did that was wrong. I think that's a bad idea. I think you need to apologize to that person. I think that was you. I know you're saying that was them, because the other thing in friendship that I think is really trips us up sometimes is this idea of loyalty. When my friend is wrong, what does it mean to be loyal to that friend? When my friend is acting immorally or unethically, what does it mean to be loyal to that friend? Some of us think that being loyal to a friend who's being immoral or unethical is to not say anything about it and just to go along with it or to cover it up. I don't think that's looking out for the best interest of that friend or yourself, for that matter. When a friend is being immoral or unethical, loyalty to the friendship or to the good of the other person is to say, you're behaving in a way that is dangerous and unhealthy. And sometimes the best thing I can do for a friend who doesn't see that the way they're behaving is unethical or immoral or dangerous or unhealthy is to remove myself from the space and allow that friend, or allow God to show that friend where their behavior is dangerous and toxic. I hope this was helpful for you guys. I really do. I really hope this helped. I will go through and say hello to everybody who commented. I'm going to come by and wave at you in the comments below. I'd like to say to any of you who are a part of the Patreon community, thank you. Our talk earlier this week with me and Jen, when we talked about knowing when it's time to leave your church, I felt so gratified after that I was able to spend that time with that group. If you're not a part of the Patreon community, you can join by clicking on the link in the comments below. I'd love for you to be a part of that community where we contend for a better world together. We share ideas, we wrestle with things together, and there's certainly also exclusive content from both my writings and podcasts that you have access to as a patron. That's all I have for you guys today. I want to thank you all for watching. If you've watched this for 29 minutes, I imagine that there was something inspiring for you that's worth sharing. So please do me a favor and share it. You never have to ask my permission to share any of the things that I put out. Grace and peace to all of you until next time.